My pleasure to be here with Rabbi Dr. Pinchas Giller, who is professor of Jewish thought and chairman of the Jewish Studies Department at American Jewish University in Los Angeles. Thanks for taking this time.
Great to be here.
So to begin with thinking about Kabbalah, your big field, and have we hit a peak? Meaning over the last decades, the American Jewish community and beyond have really become quite fascinated with and engaged with Kabbalah in new ways. And can that be sustained, or have we kind of maxed out that potential?
Well, the Judaism that we have experienced for the last 120 years or so has really been shaped by the nature of the 20th century, and the things that we found spiritual during that period have been shaped by 20th century concerns. For some of us as well, the concerns of the great Ellis Island ascent into America that happened around the turn of the 20th century. There was a vast interest in Hasidism throughout the 20th century, and yet the Hasidic world was gradually closed off. It began to be closed off already under communism, and then of course with the Shoah, with the Holocaust. So really it was a kind of a romanticized view when the reality was very shut off from people. And so you had this interest in the post-war period in Hasidism among intellectuals in the post-war period, just as was an interest in D.T. Suzuki's pasteurized version of Zen Buddhism. Mm-hmm. That kind of spirituality, those associations, and even associations that come from within the renewal movement, that's going to pass. Mm-hmm. There's no longer in many important Jewish communities an Ashkenazi majority. Mm-hmm. There is a resurgent Sephardic and Eidoth Mizrach population, and they have their own kinds of Kabbalah, mm-hmm. and they have their own traditions, and they have a strong rationalist bent mm-hmm. as well. So it may be that there's going to be a change.
So what do you suspect might be some phenomena that come next?
Well, part of me says that it will certainly be an interest in Jewish Sufism. Mm-hmm. There was a point where Jewish spirituality had a choice to go the Islamist Sufi path or to take the path of what would become Kabbalah in the 13th and 14th centuries. It took the Kabbalistic path, but the Sufi path has always been there, nascent. Mm-hmm. And I think that a rise in interest in this kind of spirituality would resolve two things. It would resolve the real, authentically rationalistic cast of much of Judaism that liberal Jews and modern Jews yearn for, and would also resolve the role of meditation mm-hmm, in Jewish mm-hmm. spiritual practice.
What would that mean for the future of Jewish-Muslim relationships? I mean, would there be potential there?
Of course, we all yearn for rapprochement and for peace and so on and so forth. So as an expression of that quality, people may in fact reach out. And I would say that is the emergent spiritual expression that is first going to assert itself.
Right. So looking at trends in Jewish spirituality, what do you see people uniquely yearning for in 2018 that might be different from earlier eras, and how does what we've inherited have something unique to offer at this moment?
Classical Kabbalah is very much involved with living inside of myth. There's a chain of mythologies that you sort of buy into, from the mythology of the Zohar and Shimon Bar Yochai to the mythology of the Tzfat Renaissance to the ongoing preoccupation with Hasidic Rebbes as individual theologians. But many people spiritually searching in America, especially at midlife, are saying, I'm not so much interested in acting out a great cosmic drama. I just want to relate more to the phenomenal world around me. I think you're going to see a growth in religious quietism mm-hmm. and a turning away from the more radical aspects of messianism, but not without mm-hmm. some spasms.
Right. I mean, my sense is that we're still, to some degree, immersed in a little bit of a self-help model of how can spirituality not just give me sort of peace or transformation, but assist me to thrive in life, right? How can this actually carry over to me, into my relationships and into my career, this and that?
Well, it comes from that notion of tikkun, which means fix.
Right.
And as people's lives become more complicated, and they maybe even make some missteps, they think more of how do I reclaim, recover, and fix my situation.
Right.
And the imagery of classical Kabbalah has always been very good for that. So I don't blame people for being drawn to that sense if they're otherwise ambitious and forward-thinking.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is a powerful Kabbalistic idea for those engaged in broader tikkun on a societal level? What do you think Jewish spirituality can offer most powerfully for those engaged in social change work, in a sense?
Oh, Shmuly, I don't know if you want me to say this.
Yeah.
I think that the mythic understanding of good and evil and the notion that some things are really evil and come from an evil, voided place, and therefore they will unerringly continue to do harm to the people that the prophets warned us to do good things for. The widows, the orphans, the homeless, the fatherless, the single parents. If whoever moves against that, we have to think in Kabbalistic terms is empirically evil, as we posit that there is a realm of empirical evil, the world of the Russia, who never lets you down. Yeah. They keep on doing bad things.
Huh. So I would have thought actually that these theologies would have given more of a spectrum of good and evil, but you want to say it actually defines more clearly for us.
Well, there's the good, but it's the evil that throws the good into higher relief.
Right,
so that's not a popular idea.
Yeah. So how would that inform an activist today, someone who has kind of committed their life to working for the vulnerable populations you mentioned?
To recognize that sometimes you always have to be in struggle because there are people who will unerringly choose to oppress the people that the Bible warns us not to oppress.
Oh, so is it also a little bit of an anti-messianic point you're making, that in a sense that the inevitability of this force of evil, that we can't actually progress beyond it?
Well, it's no, the messianic idea is that it's a struggle. And it's not beatific. So I think classical Kabbalah works well for this time we're living in. I just, wish that weren't so.
Yeah. All right, my last question for you, unless there's anything else you want to add, is what's a Kabbalistic idea that was transformative for you in your development? Something that, you made a life out of this. Was there a moment or a learning that felt like this really hooked you in?
I would say the notion of emptiness, which suffuses all of Kabbalah, and my own teacher, Daniel Matt, wrote on the subject earlier in his career. And the idea of there being an empty place, which I saw as something shared by all the world's great religions, emptiness as a source of religious meaning.
Well, can you say a little more about that? What do you mean by the emptiness as a source of religious meaning?
That sometimes there's an emptiness that underlies existence, and sometimes we have to draw on the reality of the emptiness and know that or to find an empty space within ourselves, a meditative space, a space which holds within it that which can't be quantified.
A little bit of an existential loneliness? Is it kind of what we're
sometimes it's existential,
or a longing for dveikut, for clinging to God. It's not fully.
It's an internal, a place that defies description, and therefore is sort of nothing.
Beautiful.
That's something that everybody speaks of.
Right, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there are lots of spiritual concepts, but I in my life always sought the Jewish one, and the faith that there was a Jewish one was the source of my faith.
Right. I think this idea that emptiness can, in our era, produce a sense of insecurity, inadequacy, but actually it can be transformed for deep religious, spiritual meaning.
Yes.
Of actually you go to that place rather than running away from that place.
Exactly.
Very powerful. Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Sure.
Wonderful. Keep up the amazing work. Yeah.
Thank you so much.